In this video, I'm going to get started on the mouth animation, but before I do that, I'm just going to play the body animation again. And I have deleted the poses I put on the mouth because before I start the actual lip sync animation, I want to have a clean slate and I don't want those extra keys to be in the way. So I've deleted them, and now I'll press play.
From 1 to 10, about a 4. 5.
And that's about as far as I would take the body animation before I feel like it's time to move on to the mouth. And I've already done the planning for the mouth, so now I'll start the mouth. And these are the controls for Raymond's face. The way the rig is set up, all these different controls activate different blend shapes. So this control, when I move it, it activates this blend shape to open his jaw. And this one activates this blend shape to make him smile on the right side of his face. And up here, these are the brow controls, and here are the eyelids. But down here, these are the mouth controls, and that's what I'll be focusing on. And now I'm going to select all those controls, and I have a shelf button to do that. So I'm just going to click on this mouth shelf button, and it selects all the mouth controls. And now I'm going to go through and listen to the audio and put a key on all these controls on the frames where I hear audio that I want to animate to, or just where I know I'm going to need a key pose. And I work with stepped key poses for the mouth as well as the body, and that just makes sense to me. There are definitely other good ways to do body and lip sync animation. To me, it just makes sense to make solid key poses for the mouth shapes and then add breakdowns and then spline it. So I animate the mouth similar to how I animate the body. And now I'm going to go through and put all the keys in, and I might not be completely aware of how dense everything is right in here. So when I go through and listen to the sound and put in the keys, and then once I know that, that'll help to inform the decisions I make about how to animate to those sounds. So I'll start going through now and start putting in the keys. So there's the first frame of the F. It sounds like the R. It's either an O or in the start of the M, maybe. It sounds like the W. Here's sounds like the mouth is wide when you're saying one. Here's the N. And I think you get the idea, so I'm going to fast forward a bit through this redundant section. And then that'll be a good starting point for the B. So I'll already kind of be in the B shape. Then it'll start to open here. Here's an F. And this area sounds muddy, similar to the from. It's hard to know exactly what sound is where. He's saying bowta 4, and during the bowta, there's the B sound, the O sound, the T, and the A. But from my planning, I know the mouth went from the big O shape into the F and kind of skipped over the T and the A. So this time I'm not going to put in those keys, and I'll just work with the breakdowns in between the O and the F to make sure it looks right. And here's some more redundancy that I'm going to skip over. And now I'll go back to frame 1 and start putting in poses. So I know I want him to start in a crooked smile, so I'll just make him smile on one side. And this controller closes his lips together. This controller moves his lips up and down. So I'll raise them up a little bit, and I can also bring it off to the side. And that's about the pose that I want. And now if I go to the F frame, he's back in this neutral pose because I keyed all the values at the neutral pose. But I know that I want the F to be coming from that smile. So I've selected all the controls that I want to copy, and now I'm going to paste them onto the F frame. So to do that, I'm just on the frame that I want to copy from, and then I middle click and drag, and then let go of the middle click on the frame I want to paste onto, and then press S. And that pasted all these values onto this frame. So now he's smiling on frame 1, he's smiling on the F frame, and then from there I can just make the adjustment to curl his lip in and drop his lip down. So then that's kind of an F shape, and I wouldn't consider that to be on model or finished. I'm just going quick to explain the kind of the workflow. And in order to save you a whole bunch of time so you don't have to watch me futz with all these controllers for every shape that I'm making, I've already gone through and posed all the mouth shapes And then once I had all the mouth shapes, I muted the character's body animation so he wasn't moving around throughout the animation. He was just staying still. So then I was able to capture these little pictures when I was creating the poses. And the only thing that's really changing is the mouth. He's not turning his head. His face is directed at camera the same way for all these little pictures, and then I can just look at the mouth and see what mouth I like. And then it's a good starting place. And you can obviously make adjustments to suit the particular needs of the shape and the sound, but they're fast starting places. And then you can just go through on all those keys and like find the sounds and just plug in the shapes. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'll go back to frame 1 and select all the mouth controllers. And the first pose that I want him to start in is this one. And I have arranged all these pictures in a way that makes it very easy to find the kind of shape I'm looking for. So I started here with M's or P's or B's, and I named it MPB. And then it kind of progresses through similar shapes and then turns into an F or a V, and then it opens up and cringes. So that's how I've arranged them, and it just makes it very easy to find what I'm looking for. So the first pose that I'm looking for is this one. So I'll click on it. And now it shows up over here, so this is a better shape than what I just had. And now I'll go to the next frame where I know I want to change it, on the F sound. So here is an F, and it's similar to this smiley shape, so I'll click on this F shape. And now I'll go to the next sound, which is an R, and I know that it has to get to that U shape, so or like a narrow M before it opens up into the U shape. So I'll put in an R shape, but here I know this one it's narrowing a bit. And now I'll go to the next sound, which is the M, and here I'll do a narrow-mouthed M, and then so it's an M shape, and it's narrowing, kind of flowing through from wide to narrow, and then I'll get into the U shape, or the W shape. So for that one, I guess either one of these, they're both narrow U shapes, so they'll probably work. And now I want to go to the open shape, so I'll choose this one. And now I'll go over to the N shape, and I think this was the N that I used. So I'll use it again. And next is the T sound, and I don't want to open the jaw again. It's pretty minimal. It's kind of just a transition into the T. But I think some sort of a change could be good, and I think what I figured out was instead of opening into the jaw, I can go out into an U, a tiny little hint of an U, which I think is what this shape is. So 1, 2, 10. So the lips go out a tiny little bit here, so I'll put that pose on. And it's kind of already in a T-ish shape, and I guess right now I'm going to leave it there. So I'll middle click and copy these keys over here. So I'll press S, and that copied it. So now it's still in the shape for the T, for the 10, and then it'll open up into the 10. And it's kind of a drawn out T, so I'll start it kind of partially wide, which was this pose. And then it gets a little wider, so I'll go to the wide part of the T and use this one. And next it goes into the N, instead of this, which I used for an N shape before. This is also an acceptable N shape, and it goes well with these opens. So I'll use that N shape. And then next, it just closes to prepare for the sound. So I'll close it into, it's kind of wide in the end, so I'll leave it wide for the closed mouth. And And now I'll go to the smack open frame, and I think I used the same N shape. It can be an N, or it can be opening, it can be an E. And when he closes his lips again after he smacks, I don't want it to land back exactly where it was in the wide and crooked M shape, so I put it into a narrow M shape. So that's what this one is. And I guess now is a good time to check my progress. And if I was doing this for the first time right now, I'd be scrubbing through a little more often, just to, like, as I do a couple of poses, I'd scrub back and forth and see how they're relating to each other. But since I've already pretty much done this once already, in order to get those poses for the library, I'm pretty confident that it's going in the right direction. So I hope it's pretty good. I guess I'll check right now.
1 to 10. 1 to 10.
So yeah, it's about what I was expecting. I'm pretty happy with it. It's going in the right direction. And it's still kind of rough. I'm just plugging in the poses directly from the library. I will do a pass where I make little adjustments. So, but it's good to check and just see how things are working and if you're getting good contrast and good rhythm and all that stuff. That's where I am right now, and I guess I'll bring the pose library back and I'll shrink it so I can see the curves. And now I'll go to the next frame. It's bout, so it's got to open. So I'll use this one. I think that'll work for bout, and I'll apply that. And then go to the F, and I'll use this F, and for the 4, I think was this one. And then to settle into the R, I think it was this. And so yeah, now he's kind of settling in that R shape, and that's what I want because it's kind of a held pose before he gets hit, and I like that expression. So I'll leave him there, and then he'll get hit. And here he's yelling, so I'll put on the yell pose. And then down here he'll be cringing. And I started him out in this small cringe because I wanted to have contrast on the next sound when he says, "Duh!" So this is this pose. And then he goes into the big one. And that was here. And then on the next sound that he makes, it's similar to this, I just shrunk it a little bit. And then it goes on to the F before he says 5, when he's saying 5. And here I'm using this F shape where he's showing more teeth because I want a bigger expression, because it's when he's starting to freak out. And you can't really see the mouth shape because of the position of his head, so I might try to adjust it a little bit just so I can see that shape for a frame or two, but I'll do that later. And now I'll move on to the wide yell shape. And that's this one. And here when he gets into the V, that is this V. And again here I'm using more of an extreme shape, and I feel like it works with the moment, and it also just puts him in a funny face. And that's his last expression before he gets hit, so I'll just scrub through. And then he gets hit. So I've gone through the pose library and plugged in all the shapes, and I'll hide it again, and I'll frame all that, and now I'll scrub through again and just again see how it's working and see if I like it.
1 to 10. 4.
So I thought it was pretty good. I actually When he says 4, I thought it looked kind of weird, so I'll look at that and make the necessary adjustments. But to me, this looked a little bit strange. So I'll see what I can do. But I guess now I'll do a play blast and we can watch it full speed. Fastest play blast ever.
From 1 to 10, about 4. 5. From 1 to 10, about 4. 5.
So I saw some problems that I want to fix up, but that's to be expected at this point because all I've done so far is plugged in shapes directly from the library. And I did have the advantage in this case of working with library shapes that were built specifically for this animation. But even still, they're not all quite right. And this one I never ended up using, so I'm not sure where I had intended to put that in, but I just skipped over it. And this shape that I used for the word 4 just looks wrong right now, so I'm going to have to adjust that. And that happens when you use library shapes. It's a good starting point. It can get you pretty close, but you definitely have to make adjustments afterwards. And that's what I'm going to do in the next video. But before we go there, I'm just going to cover a couple of quick things that you can do with the library that are pretty helpful. So first, if you click on a pose, it applies that pose at 100%. But if you want to just move towards a pose incrementally, then you can choose the percentage by which to do that. So right now this number is set at 25. Then if I hold down Alt and then click on a pose, it goes towards a pose at 25%. So each time I click on it. So now I'm going to hold Alt and click on this one, and you can just watch his face over here. It's moving towards this pose 25% each time I click on it. So that's a nice way to blend between shapes. And so maybe I like this pose, this crooked mouth, but I want it to be a little more frowny. So I can just apply this pose at 100%, and now I have it over here, but I want to move it a little towards this one. Then I could just hold Alt, click on it a couple of times, and now it's somewhere in between, and say I like this pose, and that's what I'm happy with. So that's pretty useful. Also, you can just apply a library pose to the selected controller. So if I just want to apply it to the jaw open, then I can do that. So, well, first I'll choose this one. So he's got his jaw wide open with the high lip, the eldest lip. But then if I just choose the jaw, I can apply a pose and it'll only affect that controller that I have selected, in this case the jaw. So if I do that, I'll just apply it at 100%, but I'll choose a shape where the jaw is closed, and I'll click on this one, and that applied the jaw value for this pose, but it left everything else the same. So his lips are still open, and he's got the curled lip. So that can be useful in some combination, just figuring out what controls you want to apply the shape to, then you can do that. And sometimes to get a breakdown shape in between the extremes, I'll set the extremes, and in the example of where he's saying bow to 4, I have the extreme where it's open for bout, and then closed for the F. And there's nothing in between, so if I wanted to get the in-between shape, and I wanted to break it down, then I would turn my step keys into linear, and then I have in-between values between these shapes. I guess in this case maybe I'd choose this one. So it's just over a little bit, so it's closing a little bit towards the F, and then I'd set a key, and then I can reposition these keys, and well, I'll turn everything back to stepped, and then I think I want this over one more, so it stays open for the bout. And then here, this new pose kicks in, where it's closing a little bit towards the F, and then it gets into the F. So that's what I do sometimes to get my breakdown poses. I want to have Maya do as much of it for me as it's good at doing, and then I make some adjustments, and then I can adjust things manually a little bit. Maybe I'll close the jaw a little more or do something else. But between my key poses where everything is stepped, I often turn things to linear just to get the in-between poses, and then I make some adjustments to get a new pose. And I guess that's it. I'll end this video now, and in the next one when I start, I'll have undone this mess that I just made here at the end, and I'll start to refine the mouth a bit.